What's going on, guys? We're back another week, another episode, Modified Rides Podcast. We're coming off a crazy few weeks, SEMA, Dino's, Thanksgiving. So on that note, hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. I know we did around here. Way too much food, but that's what Thanksgiving's for, right? I think I still have some pecan pie sitting around the house that, come to think of it, I might have to grab some of that today. But trying to catch up from being gone. Hope you guys checked out last week's episode where me and Ronnie from C10 Talk teamed up. It was available on my podcast here as well as his C10 Talk podcast. Did a dual podcast between the both of us. If you hadn't listened to it, go check it out. It was a good collab between his SEMA build, my SEMA build, me doing a podcast, him doing a podcast. It just made sense to join up and do that. Hope you guys like that. Let me know what you guys think. Got some new guests coming on. Got quite a few people on my list after SEMA and Dino's, kind of linked up with a few more people, some of the companies I deal with, and we'll get some of those people on. But this week, have a special guest, someone that's been involved with pretty much the last year of my life. Of course, y'all know Adam at AMF Garage handled the Blazer, but Ryan Evans handled the paint side of it, the Cerakote side of it. Got to work hand in hand with Ryan. Him and Adam go way back, as well as Ghetto Bob did my interior. That's also on a previous podcast. Make sure you go back and check out the Ghetto Bob episode. Can't remember what number that is right off the top of my head, but give you guys some homework to go find that. But like I said, this week I have Ryan on, the team between Adam, Ryan, and Bob, and even Pat that did my wiring. Such a great team, but I'll let Ryan run free on the paintwork of the Blazer, on the emblems, the moldings. Like we dialed a lot of stuff in to make it perfect. And sometimes you have to let an artist do what an artist does. So sit back this week, check out how Ryan Evans got his start. He's currently at Counts Customs in Las Vegas, Nevada. He's worked with some big companies, painted for some big people, been heavily involved in the mini truck world from 30 plus years ago. In my opinion, one of the best painters in our custom automotive industry. He'll say he's not, but he is. So sit back, check out this episode. Let me know what you guys think about it when it's done. But until then, remember, I've got Modified Ride Podcast shirts and hats. Hit me up, Instagram, email, whatever. Send smoke signals. It don't matter. Hit me up, get some shirts before they're gone. I'm already out of a few sizes, but different color hats, different color patches on the hat. So they're all the standard snapback. So let me know what you guys want. I can get those out to you, or you can meet up with me at a show this year. But let's get into it. Ryan Evans, check it out. All right, so this week I have the man himself, Ryan Evans. What's going on, Ryan?
What's going on, Brandon? How's everybody?
Good. The OG guys will definitely know Ryan and the chaotic world back in the day with the K. The OGs will know what it is. But Ryan's probably, I'd say, arguably one of the best painters in our custom industry. You kind of had your hands dabbled in a little bit of everything over the years, correct?
Don't say that, man. I don't think I'm one of the best by any stretch, but I guess I'm one of the painters that
Have
get
you seen your work?
I have seen my work, and I'm critical as hell of my work. But I know. I would never say I'm one of the best, but I guess I'm one that gets the attention. I don't know. I don't understand people. Y'all don't make any sense to me. I look at everybody else's work.
We'll go back to what got you started into custom paint or automotive bike world and when you were a kid.
I was kind of born into it. My dad was definitely a car and motorcycle guy. He had a motorcycle. I think it was a KZ motorcycle back in the day. And this was when I was literally an infant. And he also, our family car was a 69 Chevelle 396 Super Sport. And that was also his bracket race kind of a super stock drag car. And that was our family car. And it was gutted. It had one seat in it. My baby seat was a steel milk crate. You know, if that's not white trash enough for you. But
we didn't have the same car seats when we were kids as they do now.
I know, exactly. And then, that was growing up in the trailer park. That was always out front. My dad did a full frame off restoration in the gravel in front of our trailer park.
Oh, wow.
And that was just my mom and my dad both were into cars. They were country kids, so that's what you had to play with in the country was cars and getting in trouble and running from the cops, and that was how they handled their young adult life. My dad was enlisted in the military in the army, and we had to store the Chevelle, and kind of lost track of the car guy lifestyle and everything being overseas in Germany. But it just every time we went back to States, it's the first thing that grabs you. You know, Americana is cars, so it's kind of crammed down your throat whether you're into cars or motorcycles or not. But I obviously
Yeah.
was. I love cars. I love motorcycles. The painting part of it goes back to I think when I was 8 or 9. My parents, we were stationed in Fort Gordon, Georgia, and my parents went to I think Atlantic City or one of the beaches on the coast, and they came back with a bag of sand full of shells, and it was white ass sand, beautiful sand, and this T-shirt that had my name airbrushed on the front of it. You know, it was one of those '70s style uh, ball shirts, and it had Ryan
Yeah.
on airbrushed on the front of it with a beach scene. And my mom was so anxious to tell me the story. Like she gave me a really good, like almost like a bedtime story. How this guy had all these paint guns and he just airbrushed it on there, and it took him like 5 minutes to do this T-shirt, and it had all these vibrant colors, and it was just cool as hell. And that story kind of it captured me. You know, to this day I still remember that story. And then through my hobbies as a kid, RC cars, bicycling. I was a bicycle kid. I did trick riding. If it didn't have two wheels in my life, honestly, it didn't exist. I didn't care. And that was something that, the airbrush and custom painted frames and helmets
Yeah.
and stuff like that always intrigued me. But it wasn't until my dad was stationed in Frankfurt, Germany, that I was going to a Frankfurt American high school. It's a DoD school in Germany, and the art teacher there, and it's mandatory. You got to take X amount of credits for art. He was a renowned illustration artist in Germany. Like he had huge monster paintings up in the galleries. We used to ride our bikes by the gallery and say, "Hey, shit, that's Mr. Platt's work right there in the window." And half of his semester was the first half was high school art. Cut and paste,
Yeah.
Xerox copies of stuff, and the other half was airbrushing. And it was intro to airbrushing, and it was a process the airbrush artists know. One of the early process developed by Radu Vauro, and it's a kind of handheld shield, airbrush. I started making leaves and mountains, a couple space scenes, and it hooked me hard. Like, yep, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen done. Even watching the other students, fumble through it like me, it was cool. I wanted to watch it. And graduated
Now,
high school.
airbrush is not a standard high school part of a class, though. I guess it's just different because of where you were at.
I've been to quite a few high schools, and that was the first time. But being that Mr. Platt was, an illustration artist, and he did, man. He did several canvases each semester that were going into galleries, and these were nuts. I mean, these are like photorealistic pictures of flowers. And the best part, when he started the second semester with just airbrushing, he started with 2 covers of Time Life magazine, right? And
Yeah.
they were in cellophane, like how you protect artwork, you put it in acetate cellophane. And he presented it to the class and said, I want the class to step up here and tell me which one of these is the original and which one is a copy. And we're dumb kids. We didn't even mention airbrushing yet. He just started with 2 copies of the cover, and it was the Boston Marathon. Says lots going on this cover. There's a bunch of human heads, running down Boston, and all the way down to the skew. The date on the skew on the bottom of the corner of the magazine. We couldn't tell. Half our guesses were wrong, and he airbrushed one, and the other one was the actual copy. So photorealism at its best. And obviously, we all thought that was the coolest shit ever because you just painted this photo. It looks like it was better than a Xerox copy. And when we were restationed stateside, again, cars and motorcycles are just hitting me left and right. I got a job at a craft shop in Killeen, Texas. and the whole cabinet of the art department was nothing but airbrushes. Now, I mean, talk about having my new addiction shoved down my throat. Um, and all my paychecks went straight to getting airbrush stuff. And I was going through college, community college, and last couple semesters I was able to pay for my own college because I'm airbrushing T-shirts and teaching classes at the craft shop. And it was I didn't use that degree much at all. It went straight to
What did you go to
airbrush.
college for?
Technically, it was business management and bookkeeping. Not that that helped me again at all, really. Uh, I didn't listen to any of the things that I learned. I mean, I could do my taxes. That's about it. And I
I
knew
can't
where
even
my
do
money.
that.
I knew where my money went, you know. But as far as being the nice guy all the time and giving away paint jobs, that's to this day that's still kind of my Achilles heel. I don't like telling people no. And so the second I graduated college, within 2 weeks, I had my first shop in Killeen, Texas. So it was happening. It was difficult.
What'd you do at the shop? Was it you was in a paint shop then?
No, there was a stereo shop in Killeen, Texas. Before the shop, I was working out of my parents' garage. Quickly, I outgrew my parents' garage, and I was running a business out of the garage. My dad, you know, being military, who are these people? We got people knocking on our doors, and this was pre-cell phone, so it's not like I could do anything, you know, via the phone or emails or any of that. It was firsthand. Yeah. So it got to the point where my parents' house was being invaded by their son again, and I got a shop. I found a spot in the back of a stereo shop in Killeen, Texas. It was called Jack Stereo. It'd been there forever. I went to high school there too, and that shop was there then. So it was every high school kid knew Jack Stereo. Everybody's stereo had been done there if it wasn't done in their garage.
What year was this?
94.
So that was the height of everybody had stereo stuff back then because you couldn't buy it online. You had to go into the stores, and all us kids knew what the stores carried and what the cool stuff was back then, for sure.
And everybody's box kind of looked the same. It was a rectangle box with 2 subwoofers in it and rattled. And
some black or gray carpet.
Exactly. So I made a deal with the owner of Jack Stereo and gave him 20% off the top of everything for what used to be their tinting booth. And in Texas, tint is a big deal, but for whatever reason, they got out of it. And I was there for probably a year before I was giving them close to $1,000 a month for this bay. And Ryan was, you know, getting a little egotistical. It's like, you know what? I think I've outgrown you guys. I want to move closer to Austin where all the business is. At the time, most of my big business was coming from Austin.
What were you painting back then?
Back then, it was whatever walked through the door. Killeen was very good to me because it was Fort Hood, Texas. The GIs there, their enlistment, they had $10,000-$15,000 cash that was just burning holes in their pockets, or they lived in the barracks, so their paycheck went to something. So the GIs either had hot rods or muscle cars, or my biggest business was sport bikes, and mostly that's what I was doing at the time, was sport bikes and helmets and lowrider bikes. That was also something that got me into it. One of my riding buddies, riding bicycles, he worked at a custom shop in Killeen called Lane's Customs, and it was a lowrider shop. So my real first introduction into custom painting was lowrider. I airbrushed his hood in my parents' garage. The very first thing I ever airbrushed, dated, I think, November 94. My buddy Rob Danemark, and it was an Iron Maiden Eddie album cover that I airbrushed on his Pontiac Le Mans that he had juiced. Tiny little car. It almost looks like a modern day Chevette. And the thing was so cool. It had this massive mural on the hood. And I did a few jobs for Lanes. That introduced me to lowrider, the patterns and everything. And
now, before this, you were just painting on canvases or whatever. Like, you wasn't doing automotive stuff. How did you step from doing?
I started with
T-shirts. You step doing paint stuff on cars?
I started with T-shirts and motorcycle helmets, and the motorcycle helmets And gas tanks led me to who I consider my mentor, and that's David Ham, also in Killeen, Texas. He was a production painter at Toyota of Killeen at the time. And he would walk me through the steps and the processes, and he would help me out by clear coating the helmets and the gas tanks that I would do. Then I met a cat named Tom Rich who owned the Jobber store, the paint store there in Killeen. They sold PPG and House of Color, and he actually set me up with my first setup of toners. Told me, the mixing ratio, and he sold me my first paint. And he was a renowned airbrush artist and pinstriper. He's worked with a lot of the greats. Sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago. But between David Ham and Tom Rich, those are the guys that I can blame for me being in the industry. And then there's a whole slew of my heroes that guided me through my career in the industry. Gene Winfield, John Kosmosky, Craig Frazier.
Yeah.
That list is a mile long. But when I outgrew
Now Craig, I guess Craig was already doing I guess then it would probably be more of the sport trucks and the mini truck stuff, doing the graphics. Like, where did you start doing graphics like that? Not just the airbrushing.
probably a year and a half to 2 years into painting, when I moved to
You
Austin.
did it pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ryan was moving fast. Ryan wanted to take over the world like yesterday. I think I got my first magazine feature within the first 8 months of painting.
Oh
Uh,
wow!
yeah, it was a
And
Mitsubishi.
what was that?
It was a Mitsubishi owned by a cat named Rick. He's out on the East Coast now, but he was in the military, and he did full frame off 90s style lowrider kind of crossover to mini truck style. Mini truck had a dancing bed on it, and there's an artist by the name of Soriyama, and he does these chrome women. And I put a Soriyama piece on the hood, which was a Da Vinci, the guy with the arms and the circle around it and the
Yeah.
square showing human anatomy. And then on the tailgate, I did a chrome lady laying down on the deck lid on the tailgate. So those were my first. He was my first paying customer. But once I moved to Austin or Round Rock, that's when I was introduced to mini trucks, because it was lowrider and motorcycles up to that point. And when I moved to Round Rock, I ran into a cat named Rob Rodell at the Saturday kind of cruise night thing, and he
Yeah.
had Lomigo, and it was at the time it had a set of I think 15s or 14s hammers, and it was just lime green. And I approached him with my portfolio. I was just walking around handing out business cards to everybody, had my portfolio. And
Because
he,
back then we didn't have Instagram and Facebook to show
yeah, that's
people.
it. That's it. I just had a crappy school binder full of pictures. But I approached him, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know that I trust you. And I totally act like I've been painting for decades. This is all easy for me. And that's one of the things I did. I flat out said, "Hey, have you ever done flames before? I've done hundreds of flames. I've done that so much. I'm tired of doing. I never did a flame job in my life. I just fumbled my way through it, and I don't know. I guess attention to detail managed to keep me alive anyway this far. But Rob Rodell's Lomigo was my shooting star. That's the one that kind of took me to being a nobody to at least somebody. They were looking at my work, and that was inspired 1,000% by Craig Frazier. As talking with Rob Rodell, I bought my first mini truck magazine. Well, of course, Cal Concepts and Craig Frazier is cover to
Yep.
cover mini truck.
Every issue.
Yep. So I did my studying, and I actually thought I was doing good. It's like, man, these guys are going to appreciate. I've got their style pretty pegged, right? Yeah, it was not. That was not what happened.
Really?
Yeah, it was. And my hats off to Craig and Cal Concepts. They developed their style back then from a collection of other styles that developed that style. Um, I just blatantly plagiarized it, and I didn't copy the paint jobs. I just copied the style. I put the math together, and it kind of made sense, and it looked good to me.
Were they I guess the originators of the quote unquote mini truck graphics?
I don't know if they were the originators, but they definitely, there were other graphic artists that, like I said, it was in my opinion, it's a collective of styles that developed that style.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they were the originals, but they definitely um, dialed it down between Kyle Gantz and Craig Fraser. They had the look, man, and they used that phrase right there. We are the look, and of the tribal mini truck style, they banged it out every time. I mean, every single one was a banger. They didn't have a graphic that looked out of place, not once, and their paint jobs
Yeah.
looked like they were going 200 miles an hour sitting still in detail for days. I mean, they had textures and murals and stripes and highlights and shooting star. I mean, they had so much stuff going on in those paint jobs that, okay, if I'm going to emulate anything, it's going to be the best. His truck going to the cover of the magazine was probably okay. This is definitely something. And he even said to my parents, maybe he's got something. He might we might be okay. He'll be able to keep a roof over his head. And I was making decent money in Texas at the time. And then I kept getting more customers and more customers. And actually, that's how I met Bob. And that was through the truck club, Negative Camber, and Rob Rodell.
So back with Rob's, did he have any kind of layout of what he wanted, or did he just say, "Well, you talked me into doing the graphics. Just do what you feels best."
Yep, pretty much. I did a couple drawings, and they were childish as hell, as they still are. My drawing skills have not developed in any way, shape, or form. But I did a drawing, and he agreed to it. And I don't remember how long. I think it took me like a month. And
How are you that good of a artist and painter but can't draw? Do you have to have the paint gun in your hand in order to make that vision come to life?
yeah, back then I had another influence, Von Otto, and he airbrushed everything. He's from Texas, and he was a big freehand airbrush artist. He didn't stencil anything. He didn't project anything. The dude walked up, just started airbrushing. So I thought that's how you did it. Um, so at the time I could draw, but over time, only airbrushing and literally taking, no sketch, no pre-sketch or anything. I'd have the image and I'd just start airbrushing. So
Yeah.
I kind of lost the skill of drawing, uh, airbrushing and pinstriping, because it's faster for me to have a reference, but to not transfer that reference. Just start airbrushing. And it was much faster for me. I mean, I'd knock out murals in a day. Um, I
But
lost my train
on
of
on
thought.
Rob's though, you basically just started laying stuff out and just kept stacking and stacking till you got the look that you were after on Rob's, because you said that was your first full out mini truck paint job, right?
That was my first time experiencing the Cal Concept style, and I had the drawing that I did, and I understood lines of a vehicle, and I understood flow from doing the motorcycles, because with the sport bikes, flow is everything. If you have a bunch of vertical
Yeah.
lines, you're killing your flow. So I learned a few things, from doing the motorcycles and doing helmets and stuff that helped me stumble through Rob's and make it at least look like I knew what the hell I was doing. And when I was done, it was it. Rob even came to look at it, and at the time I didn't have a booth. It was just an empty shop, and we had to trailer it all the way from Round Rock to Killeen on a trailer to get it clear coated. And I wasn't confident in clear coating a whole vehicle at the time, so I had my mentor David Ham. He cleared it for me, and that was it. I did several vehicles in Killeen. My mentors, I did Dave's Suburban 2 or 3 times, and got into magazines. Did okay, but it was definitely Rob's Lomigo that just blew up. It was a cool ass
Now
truck without
you
anything that I
mentioned
did.
that you mentioned Craig and them weren't real pleased. What did they say anything about, I guess, you biting their style per se?
No, that's exactly what I did. I just didn't look at it that way. I figured they would appreciate, this guy's got it kind of figured out. He's doing pretty
Yeah.
good. Looks just like our stuff. Um, with all the magazine footage and coverage that I was getting, obviously it put me in the forefront to where people could see who I was. Being in Killeen, nobody really saw anything or cared one way or the other. And it didn't help that at the time I also used a little bit of their name. And it was Craig Fraser was Air Syndicate, and I went with Syndicate Studios because Syndicate was just that cool to me. It had that negative badass demeanor, and it was just cool. So I was biting left and right, but I didn't look at it like I was biting. I looked at it as I was kind of paying homage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't come across that way. And yeah, Craig was not happy with me at all. And then there was a truck club that was Syndicate Minis, and they also were not happy with me at all. But I was secluded enough in Texas that I didn't know. I had no idea. I was just in my shop doing my thing. It wasn't until I moved to California that it hit me. These guys don't like me at all. I didn't kind of mess up. I straight up really messed up. And before I moved to California, I changed the name to Chaotic Customs. Just 'cause
So how did that come about?
um, I guess there was a little voice inside my head that said, you know what, if you're going to do your own thing, do your own thing. And going to car shows, I was asked a lot, you know, hey, does Craig Fraser know you're using his name? I'm like, well, I'm not using his name. I'm using a word out of his name. It started kind of adding up that, okay, Ryan, you're doing something stupid. And if you're going to get this kind of publicity from the work that you're doing, you can't do it by biting off of somebody else. You got to stop that. And I did. I changed it to Chaotic before I moved to California. And actually, the last few vehicles that I did in Texas all said Chaotic. And when I moved to California, that was another rude awakening. Outside of, hey, here's the guy that's been biting us. We've got him in front of us. Let's get him. That there are
Gang
thousands.
turf war.
Yeah, there are thousands and thousands of custom painters that are all badasses in the state of California. And my level of competition went from this in Texas, where I was the guy in Texas that would do the mini trucks, to now I'm literally this big and in a sea of custom painters. And I struggled in California. I learned a lot of tough lessons in my 3-year sentence in California.
So you said why you were in Texas, though, before you moved to California, though. You said that's when you met up with Bob. I guess Bob was already down there, and we're talking about Ghetto Bob.
Yep.
I guess he was already down there doing audio, and you just ran into him at a show. Like, how did you guys meet up?
It was at a negative camber. Had I think it was everybody went to Hooters, and then we were going to a car show in Houston, or a truck show in Houston, and after the truck shows when we ran into Bob, and he had this sick ass GMC Sonoma that he had the ass in all welded up, and he was actually one of the first people any of us came across. He had electric valves. Everyone else at the time still had paddle valves, and he was using solenoids. So that brought Rob, and I was following Rob Rodell around like a puppy, and he's like, I got to go check this out. All right, let's go check it out. And that was the beginning of meeting Ghetto Bob. And Rob and I kind of got sucked into his circle, and he got sucked into our circle. And now we've got a team. We got an interior guy, we got a suspension guy, and we got a paint guy. And we had a group of guys that worked in collision shops. That was Todd Katner was the buffer. And then we had Lurch and Dollar Bill. They were the guys that did the prep work and the body work. So we had a collection of friends that worked in the industry that had their own jobs that we could all depend as a mini truck club. They could depend on each other to, help build each other's trucks. So the camber in Texas was pretty cool, man. We were all really good friends, and I of course didn't have a mini truck. I just kind of tagged along. Back then in the early 90s, negative camber in Texas, they were strong. Like they had the cool trucks. And when we went out to California with Ghetto Bob's truck for the first time and Rob Rodell's, man, they made a presence. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Was Ghetto Bob's your second mini truck graphics you've done?
Say that one more time. Broke up.
Was Bob's your second mini truck graphics you've done?
I probably weaseled a few jobs. Me and Bob discussed doing it, and I probably weaseled 4 or 5 jobs in front of his, but his was one of the last that I did before I left Texas. So when his truck was done in my shop in Austin, Round Rock, literally he came to pick up his truck, and I drove my U-Haul with my shop out of it that day.
Wow.
So that was it. And I worked out of a U-Haul for probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, working on a few other jobs before I left town.
Now, when you were in Texas, is that when you started doing the $100 bills on the tailgate?
No, not yet. The $100 bill started with. So I moved to California, and 2 weeks later, um, one of the guys in the club, you might know him, Big O. He had a 4-door GMC, and he wanted me to do the graphics. David Ham already did the paint, and Leonard did the body work, shaved the handles, and everything. It's a beautiful truck, just black. It's beautiful. And Big O was ready to step up and do graphics. So I moved to California, unloaded the truck, everything in the shop, closed it up, jumped on an airplane, and flew back to Texas for 2 more weeks. And in that 2 weeks' time, I did the graphics on Big O's truck, and that was the start of the $100 bill logo. I don't know, I don't recall exactly how it happened, but Big O at the time, he
Because
was,
that became your signature mark there for forever.
yeah. After that one hit the magazine, everybody saw it, and then everybody wanted it after that. I don't know how the idea came up, but it came up, and I did it, and it was a hit. So that was a signature move for Ryan from there on.
And you were doing real American $100 bills clear coated into the tailgate.
Oh yeah, the trick with that at the time, I couldn't process the paper that the $100 bill is made with. If you did a Xerox, it washed out the ink, the paper became transparent, it just looked like crap. So the real $100 bill um, could absorb the clear coat and the resin and the glue and any other, whatever I used to get it on
Yeah.
there, and it stayed true color. So it was like vinyl. But for those that knew better, it was kind of a status, it was a middle finger to anyone that questioned, if it was a real $100 bill. You could see the lint, they had colored lint in the paper. It's like, that's a real $100 bill. So it was kind of a player status to use a real one. It's like, it doesn't mean that much to me. I cut them up and put my name on it. That meant a lot to us back then in mini trucks. We're a bunch of broke ass punk kids living out of our parents' houses,
Yeah.
building mini trucks and taking all the Boyd Coddington build cars trophies. We go to the Autoramas and we're walking out with stacks of trophies. So yeah, hell yeah.
When did you know that you had established yourself as one of at the time, the mini truck graphic guys? Was it after Rob's, or did it take a couple for you to go, all right, this is something now?
I never did. I never did. I never stopped for a second to really think of it that way. Um, you got to shop, you struggle. It was more about, okay, what do I do to pay next month's bills, and then next month's bills, and then next month's bills? How do I get paint in the shop? So I never really stood back and relished in anything that I did. It was always the next job to pay the bills. So I didn't know.
Yeah.
This is all new to me. The Mini Truck Hall of Fame was probably the first time I even considered being anybody gave a shit about. Like, holy crap, they recognized I did something. I didn't know that. I was just
You
paying
were
my
definitely
bills,
one of the
man.
trendsetters. You were one of the trendsetters during that era of I guess the mid to late '90s there.
Well, careful with that because, again, like I said, I was biting Cal concepts at Craig Frazier.
You still had your own style. You weren't taking a picture of what their graphics look like and duplicating it to the T. You were like playing off of, no different than somebody doing a two-tone with a 3-color stripe in the middle. Like you putting your own spin on that.
Right. Nowadays, I can look back and say, yeah, okay, Ryan brought a little bit to the table. Like I said, it wasn't until the Mini Truck Hall of Fame, and that was 4 or 5 years ago, that it really hit me that actually I had left a footprint in the sand that somebody else looked at. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Now, what brought you to California? Because if you were, you said had a couple different cities there in Texas. Why just pack up and move to California?
Good damn question. um, Truth be told, financially, it was the worst mistake I ever made. Um, because I was stable and supported myself clearly in Texas. Uh, Between me and Ghetto Bob, we were both being flown to California to do jobs, and it kind of baffled
Oh,
us a little
really?
bit. Yeah, it baffled us a little bit that, why are we going into technically the Lion's Den? This is where it all started. This is everyone is in California. Why are some Texas kids getting flown to California? Well, we did that, and we allowed it to build up our egos, like we're king dingalings. Even California is flying us out from Texas to do their work. It must mean something. Lo and behold, it was just we're idiots, and we did it really cheap, and we were easy to work with. But it got it in our head that California needs us. California needs Ryan and Bob. We're the guys that they need. And when we moved out there, it was like, yeah, we're just a dime a dozen, and we were just the ones willing to do the job, no questions asked, for very little money.
Did you guys move together?
I moved first, and then probably a year later, Bob moved out. He worked
Okay.
with West Coast Customs before they were Pimp My Ride, and
Yeah.
he established himself deep into West Coast Customs, and I just kind of, did my thing, getting through life, paying bills. And it wasn't until part of my 3-year sentence in California, some of my work was starting to move into Las Vegas, and people were noticing that. And that caught the eye of Danny, the count here at the shop, and Shannon, the bike builder at the time, because I wanted to get out of anything that had four wheels. Four wheels were two wheels too many, and it was just breaking the bank, and it was hard to get help. They was going to do the job, the way I wanted it, without a fight and without costing me an arm and a leg. Because again, I was giving away paint jobs. So I wanted to get back to doing motorcycles because that paid my bills, that made me a lot of money, and I didn't have to struggle so much. So the bike shop noticed some of my work floating around Vegas, and they contacted a contact who contacted me and started that conversation rolling. And Shannon, the bike builder, came out to California to visit. And I don't know that he was serious, but I took it serious. Like, hey, would you consider moving to Vegas and be our painter? Like, you say when, man. I'll close these doors today and get the hell out of California. And sure shit, I did, and here I am today.
Now, backing up a little bit, I know you was talking about you went out to California to do some paint jobs. I think Adam has said something that you come out and painted a boat for somebody he worked for or something.
Yeah,
I guess before you moved to California.
I can blame Adam for that move too. Between Adam and Brian Gendro, the chop shop, they're the ones that did all the talking. Yeah, Adam had me fly out. He worked at Custom Creations, which, if you're any kind of a custom historian, Custom Creations in Gardena. Chris had this 28-foot Warlock cat. It was a catamaran, a V-hull, or not a V-hull, a cat. Anyway, he flew me out there, and I think I did the job for $2,500. He had to pay for all the materials and put me up and pay to get me out there. And I think it took me like 2 weeks, and I painted it. And then another job showed up, and then I met Brian Gendro at Heatwave. The same year I finished up Rob Rodell's Amigo, and he came out with first airbag Astrovan or something like that. And while he was here, I threw a quick belt line paint job on it. I think it took me a day. And he was blown away. He's like, man, that would have taken our guys months to do, and wouldn't even know if we get it back, and blah, blah, blah. So he started planting the information in my head that told me to get the hell out of Texas.
Like you could do something out here in California.
Right. Exactly. Because I was...
Now, did you know, you didn't know Adam or or anybody else out there when you first started doing work for them, did you?
I met Gendro at Heatwave, so that was my first interaction with him. And afterwards, that's when I was going out there. He would always have a new vehicle for a Rezo, and we'd do something for it. Me and Bob would fly out to go to Rezo, but while we were there, it's like, we're here, why not have some fun and play on Brian's new toy? And Adam, no, I knew nothing about Adam. I knew nothing about Chris or even Custom Creations. I think I was 22 at the time. I answered the phone, and it was the coolest thing. Someone's going to fly me to go paint something? Well, hell yeah, count me in, man. That's what we did back then. We kind of flew by the seat of our pants. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were just going with the flow.
Yeah. So what year did you make the move to from California to Vegas?
I think it was 96. So I started painting
Okay.
in 94 and I moved to California in 96. I'd already had two shops. I moved from Killeen to Round Rock within the 2 year period. And then I was out to California to be in the big leagues, I guess.
And you had your
So
own shop, or did you work in somebody else's shop in California?
no, in Escondido, California, there's the Palomar watering bottling facility was vacant, and they were trying to keep it off the books, but still make some money with it. So I had, I think it was 4,500 square feet interior and another 4,500 square feet exterior that they were only going to charge me $500 a month, power,
Oh
water,
wow.
everything. And yeah, Ryan jumped on that real damn quick. Um, and I had that for about a year in California before I was shipwrecked again. Then I moved to, I was working with West Coast as well as Ghetto Bob at the time. And I was doing work for West Coast and only taking half the money and leaving the other half on the books because we were supposed to go in this big shop, everybody together.
And this
So I
was
had
this
about,
was pre West Coast being who they are. This was when they were still small, like
oh
up and
yeah,
coming.
yeah, this was their Compton shop. So I was shipwrecked for another year without a shop, but I was using friend shops there in Escondido and getting the work done for half the money. And then when the day came that West Coast was going to move into the new big building, the city of LA was not going to allow this many different entities in one building without all these crazy firewalls. So, needless to say, Ryan was out of the deal because I was the biggest hangup. And
Biggest
with
hazard being all the paint stuff.
all the paint and all that, right? The biggest fire hazard. And so I took over West Coast Compton shop when they moved to the La Cienega shop. And I was stuck there for another 13 months until I was able to get out and move to Vegas.
Now, you said when you got with Shannon and Danny there at Counts Customs, is that the first place you went to when you moved to Vegas to go to work for Counts?
Yeah, that was the only place. I closed my shop in Compton, packed everything up in a U-Haul to open a paint shop at Counts Customs and work at Counts Customs. Had it not
And
been for
what year
Danny
was
and
this?
Shannon, that was 98, I think, 98, 99.
Okay.
Yeah, 96. I did my 3 year stretch in California. So yeah, it'd be about 99. I remember I moved to Vegas Halloween night, 99.
So, and you were in the same booth area you are now at the shop, right? That was your first paint shop, is where you're currently at, right?
No, originally the paint shop was actually in what's the museum now. And
Okay.
at the time, Danny and his wife Corey, they just got married. So he was off on his honeymoon and he didn't come in. I didn't meet him for another 2 weeks. I had already moved in and I don't believe he really knew I was even coming because he wasn't very happy. He was not happy that his beautiful collection of family cars was now covered in a quarter of an inch of dust. And but he got through that, and he did a little walkthrough interview with me, and poked around, find out what my influences were and how long I've been doing it, and some of the accomplishments that I had. And at the time, I still didn't really think of them as accomplishments; they were just jobs I did. And it worked out. I said all the right things, and Danny was happy. And it probably took Danny 3 years of me working here and doing paint work for customers and all the bikes, all the cars, for him to allow me to work on one of his rides. So he was still feeling me out, probably five
Yeah.
years in. And the first job I did for him, I want to say was as a car, was his Viper. And, it was a nightmare because this place was not set up to be a paint shop. I mean, the detail area was literally 20 feet in front of the intake filters on the paint booth. So there's a solid 5 years of struggling as to whether this was even going to work out or not. Did a few more jobs for Danny, and he was happy. And gradually, I got better at making uh, the quality meet the standards. And the speed was not the issue. Mine was pretty quick, but it was the quality standards on the cars as opposed to the
Now
motorcycle.
was he doing full out customer stuff back then, like at that time?
No, when I moved here, it was a bike shop. The only cars that we ever worked on were the family owned. We didn't do any customer cars at all, just motorcycles, which was
And
great.
that was is that when it was still Evil Twin?
Yeah, that's back when it was Evil Twin. And I was very happy to not work on vehicles. Motorcycles was where it was at for me. So it was probably 15 years before Counts Customs dove into building cars. And it was rocky road. It took a minute, but once we started playing with the flips, that's when we started having fun. That's when progress was moving really fast, and we got to have fun with it. You know, Danny would buy a car, and instead of doing it for a customer by their standards, we got to have fun with it. You know, cars that you would dream of, man, that would look good with flames. Instead of wishing a customer or talking a customer into flames, okay, let's flame it. Or hey, that should be scallops. Or hey, that should get paneled out. Or hey, we should do a satin on that with some gloss. Man, we were having a blast doing whatever the hell we wanted to on the cars by our own standards. You know, instead of stripping the cars down to bare metal and having these massive budgets, we just had fun with the cars. You know, if it came up beat up, okay, Ryan has a plan for that. We'll play with some gloss graphics, some satin glass graphics, and you're not going to notice the waves in the paint job. But again, these were our cars. These weren't customer cars. So we had a blast with that, and that's when the show showed. The show started with that.
What year was that?
I think that was 2010, 2011. That's right when we had just after the big economy crash. Yeah. So I think that was 08, and I think by 2010, everybody kind of got their shit straight again and came out of hiding, and we started building cars, playing with cars. Motorcycles had kind of died out, so Danny started playing around with cars.
I guess during that time before the Counts thing started, people that aren't from that area don't realize that, you know, Musso Motorsports was in the same building. So you were back to working with Adam in some capacity, Adam Joe, doing, I guess, mini truck stuff on the side.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I'd say after the first 5 or 6 years of being a contractor with Counts Customs, it got to the point where the paint shop was really growing, and I needed to break through kind of the red tape of, you know, being Counts Customs. And after the economy crash, or just before the economy crash, rather, I started to rent the shop from Danny, and it became Chaotic Customs in Las Vegas.
Again.
So, yeah. So I was on my own to, you know, take whatever work I wanted to and not worry about, you know, destroying a collection of family cars or worry about letting everybody know every second of every day of every job, you know, what was going on. So I was renting the shop from Danny probably 2003, 2004 to 2010-ish, I think. And then we started doing flip cars. And at some point after the economy crashed, I lasted until like 2010, and it was just, bro, I can't keep the shop open. Work's not there like it used to be. And you know, what do you think about taking over the paint shop again? And he's like, yeah, okay, that'll work. And immediately after that, that's when we started doing buying cars and doing flips.
Now, when did you start? Or doing the TV stuff, because you were on, I guess, early on in the episodes, because you were there before all that started.
Yeah, I was at Counts long before Mike or anyone else. Me and Shannon have technically been here longer than anybody. But Mike was working on his bus at my house, and he was between living on my couch and living on one of his friends' couch while he was building this bus. And we got word, you know, the TV show is going to come down with cameras and start interviewing people. And I told Mike, it's like, hey, I'll call you, you know, when the cameras show up. We know this is really happening. And sure shit, the producers showed up. They started doing interviews. So I got on the horn and told Mike, hey, get your horns, get your fur coat, get your ass off the couch and get down here because the cameras are here. So when I walked out of my interview, I thought I did okay. I don't think I answered any of the questions, but Mike went in there after me and smashed it. I mean, he owned it. He was probably one of the top 2 or 3 people that they wanted for the show. I'm like, you son of a bitch. I've been
And
trying for
people
this
that
shit.
don't and
I've,
people that
I've
don't
been,
know Mike outside of on TV, he is just the way you see him on TV
oh,
in real life every day.
he's way worse. He's way worse. Like he's turned down. I tell people all the time, because I get asked that a lot. You know, is Mike really like that? And I said, well, TV, they had to turn him down to like a 3. He usually cruises about an 8. And when he's tuned up, he's full blown 11, 12.
Yep, I saw quite a bit of that while working on the Blazer. So
Yeah, yeah. He's definitely walking shock factor. That's
so
how Mike works.
how did it feel going from just a regular airbrush guy turned mini truck graphic artist to now you're on TV? What was that like to now all of a sudden everybody in the world can see you on weekends?
It was I was very happy for the shop, and I was excited for the brand, Counts Customs, because there's a lot of time and a lot of effort and money invested into finally making something of that. Um, for me personally, man, again, I don't really look at myself that way. I just really tried to make us not look like complete fools in the industry and to not make the industry look like complete fools. So it
Yeah.
was, I don't know, I was nervous. I was very nervous about it. You know, to have your business sprawled out there in front of everybody and there's no debating, there it is. There's the proof right there on TV. It made me nervous, but I think with individual characters and personalities, and not in the sense of the camera, but just personally who we are, uh,
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we went in a positive direction, and I'm humbled as hell. Again, I don't really think that much of myself in my career. I'm a professional bill payer. Um, but at the same time,
Aren't we
I
all?
understand. I get, yeah, okay, maybe I've done some things that are known. It's a shock to me. I get it. I don't always understand it, but I can at least acknowledge, hey, I guess we did something, or I guess I did something. Um,
Yeah.
I still don't consider myself to be anything or anybody special. I don't know. I paint shit, and I got a hell of a crew
Well,
behind me
I don't
that make me look really
I
good.
don't I don't go to events and sign autographs and stuff, so we're definitely not on the same level. You definitely have that above me factor to some
And
degree.
that still shocks the shit out of me to this day. Like, you want my signature? That's not going to buy you lunch or anything, you know. But I, I guess my ambitions have been on the creative side, not on the side of developing my personality or my character. So that just happened naturally. It wasn't my
Yeah.
plan. My plan is to just keep being a better painter than I was yesterday. And I know it's like a bumper sticker, but I mean, that got me this far, right?
Well, I know we talked quite a bit when we was working on the Blazer. Uh, you're one of the few painters that does everything start to finish. You do the body work, you do the priming, the blocking, the actual base paint, the graphics, the pinstripe, the buffing. Like you can do it all. And you said that you kind of just had to teach yourself that because no one would step in and put you under their wing to show you how all that stuff worked, right?
Right. I got to clarify something, especially because I've got an awesome team here. Yes, I can do all those things. No, I don't do all those things on all the vehicles. So I
Yeah,
don't
of
want
course.
anyone to get it confused with, yeah, I do everything. Hell no.
But
Uh,
that's what I meant. You
but
can
yes, I
do it.
can.
A lot of guys stop it. I'm a sprayer or I'm a graphics guy, where you can do it all.
Well,
That from start to finish if you had to.
that goes back to the creative side of things, and that goes all the way back to Clean Texas with my mentor. Um, Back in the late '90s, the color palette was a lot of pastels, a lot of solids, no pearls, no metallics, no candies. At least in the mini trucks. And at the
Yeah,
time, David was moving into mini trucks, not so much lowrider. And his color choices were all solids. Ryan wanted to do candies and pearls and metallics. And so if Ryan was going to do that, Ryan had to learn how to paint. And with custom body modifications, if I wanted to do a truck, but I really thought the handles needed to be shaved, um, I couldn't rely on someone else to do that for me. I had to figure it out myself. The same with doing body work, fabrication, same with pinstriping. Because again, I started this just airbrushing. I was only an airbrush artist. Me and tape did not get along at all in the very beginning. And that's the truth. It became a thing of necessity to learn everything about this industry, because if I didn't, that meant I didn't get the job, or I had to pay somebody else. And being that I gave paint jobs away, I'd probably pay someone to do a portion of the job more money than I was getting to do the whole job.
Yeah.
So it was just something that I forced myself to do. Um, Somewhat of that's a control built in my head that I don't want to give somebody else control over that. The other thing is I wanted to keep growing and doing cooler and cooler stuff. And the shops that could do everything, the one-stop shops, they were the ones doing all the cool stuff. So I had, out of necessity, I had to teach myself and literally I had to teach myself. One of the things from the 90s to the 2000s is no one taught their competition. Nobody.
Yeah.
We all knew each other, but we didn't poke around and ask, how'd you do that? How do you do that? Because the response was always, I bet you would like to know how I did that, sarcastically.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later in the 2000s, 2010-ish, that the secrets they were being put out there. More and more tech articles, and more details about how things were done, and quicker, faster, easier, cheaper ways to do things were now more public with like social media. So now the secrets are just about all out, and you can teach yourself how to do all these things without fucking up horribly along the way.
Well, like pinstriping is an art in itself. Like a lot of pinstripers, that's all they do, because a lot of painters don't do the pinstriping because it's a whole different world to hold that brush just right and to do different than a paint gun would.
Right. Well, pinstriping is probably more so of a craft than anything else in the custom painting industry, in my opinion. There's a lot to it. Me learning how to airbrush, I think back, maybe it was because I was young and ambitious that it wasn't that difficult for me to learn to airbrush. But pinstriping, I still to this day, 30 some odd years later, I still struggle with pinstriping. So it is a craft, again, in my opinion, above anyone else or any other craft. It's definitely a craft more than it is an art, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that, like when you were doing the flip cars, you kind of got to do what you wanted to and not have constraints of a customer. That's kind of how, when we decided to do the Blazer, it's, even though I didn't have a full paint job, I still consider my Blazer a Ryan Evans paint job because you've touched every inch of it. But
Yeah.
you know, we kind of talked, and me, you, and Adam stuff. Even Bob kind of kicking in some ideas like this is kind of what we want. But I'm like, just do you, like, do what you would do if it was yours. And I feel you had quite a bit of fun on making that look like it did.
Yeah, for decades I've emulated rust and patina paint jobs, all the way back in the 90s, with the mini trucks. But I guess I never really took time to study what rust was, honestly, until your truck. And I took pictures of the roof. It was beautiful patina on that roof, flawless. Yeah. Took pictures of it and blew it up. I'm like, son of a bitch, that rust is just a bunch of speckles. And you and I talked about it. It's like, I love a girl with freckles, and yep. The speckles made it. All 30 plus years of techniques of trying to emulate rust to make it look exactly like rust, and sure shit, it's just a bunch of overlaying speckles. Son of a bitch.
Well, I know Adam had made a trip down to 7-Eleven. Of course, people that don't know Ryan, he visits a 7-Eleven at least 20, 30 times a day. I don't think you go to any other food or business establishments throughout the day. Well,
I'd say more than 5, less than 10. I say more than 5, less than 10.
By lunch, what do we? So Adam went, I guess, for a drink run, and he called me. I was like, maybe you can have him add a little bit of rust to like the door locks or the door handles where it's run or whatever. He goes, all right, I'll go in and talk to him. Hangs up the phone, walks inside. 2 minutes later, he calls him back. He goes, oh yeah, that stuff you mentioned. Yeah, Ryan already done it.
It's already done.
What you said. Yeah.
Already done.
But it was cool to give you that free reign because as an artist, you got to blend that factory paint, factory patina into a more modified patina. You know how people ask all the time, well, how much of it's real? I'd say about 80% of it's real. Yeah, we had to blend a couple spots that had to be fixed, but for the most part, I'd say 80% of it's real. But I feel the paint on the Blazer was more of just a wore out paint than it was patina.
Right.
So you went through and made it that patina, and I couldn't have been happier with how it come out. You know, I had several people like, well, I don't know. You're talking about putting rust on a shell, and it's like if we painted that shell white and put it on, it would look completely out of place. So when the
Right.
idea came up to do rust on it, it was a game changer. It was like, all right, this has to be done. And the people that questioned it in the beginning now are like, that's my favorite part on the whole vehicle.
Right. I mean, you remember seeing the camper show when it was, because that thing was a mess. It had to be completely
Oh,
re-glassed,
it had to be redone.
gel coated. I mean, it was that there's more work on that top than there is the entire truck.
It
So,
probably
and
was so bad. The fiberglass was probably so bad it probably would have leaked through the fiberglass if we didn't touch it.
oh yeah, most definitely. It had another week in the sun before it was just bury it. But you saw it when it was fresh white, and it
Yeah,
looked like a brand new pair of shoes on a street bum. It's like that
yeah.
just doesn't, they're not jiving at all. So that
Well
rust on the
then,
top was everything.
the little details that we add is like, I did the build emblems and I was like, what's a chance you think about painting this? And I remember you saw the first one, you're like, yeah, these have to have some color. I'm like, all right, what about these moldings? I see very few people color change the stripe in the moldings. And he was like, well, I'll do it, but I'm not doing the grunt work behind it. So me and Adam, well, I'm sorry, I had to strip all the black. And me and Adam taped them up and sanded them. And of course, we'd have to get, permission from the boss if they were sanded enough. Hey, Ryan, look at this. Be like, nope, missed a spot there. So he did put me to work on my own vehicle. So I guess I'm one of the few that actually works on one of your customers' vehicles while you're working on it.
Yep. I usually don't allow that because that's usually more babysitting. But for stripping the paint off some side moldings, oh, knock yourself out. Better you than
Do
me.
you have, other than you mentioned, Rob Rodell's Lomigo, do you have one vehicle that you've done over the years that you're like, that is my masterpiece? That is what I feel is my favorite paint job I've done?
I get asked that a lot, and I guess on a personal note, because I never get any of my own stuff done, and it wasn't actually until the show started that I actually had anything cool custom painted of my own. I mean, nothing, not a wall piece, not a fish, not nothing, because paying
Well,
the
plumbers
bills.
have leaky faucets at home, so
I know, but paying the bills was always priority number one, and I just couldn't justify spending that kind of bread on me. Even if it got me more work, I couldn't do it. But I would say um, my favorite jobs are, of course, mine: my van, the panel truck, my caddy, and whatever future projects. But one of the curses that I have, and a lot of other custom painters have, and I think it's a sign of success, in my opinion, is that if you're in the middle of your would-be Mona Lisa, the best thing you've ever done, and you haven't already outdone it by the time you're halfway through in your head, you have not outdone that paint job you're currently working on tenfold in your head for the next job, then you haven't quite made it yet. So before I'm even done with what at the time would be my Mona Lisa, I've already outdone it in my head 10 times. So
yeah,
I don't know, when it's done, it's like, okay, let's get paid so we can pay the bills. It isn't, and that's what keeps me kind of in the dark about things that maybe that I've done or counts customs or chaotic or whatever, of stepping back and say, wow, shit, we actually did something that is a little revolutionary. Because I've already redone it, and by the time I'm halfway through, it's just okay. Now it's time to just finish this up and be done with it because we've got more waiting. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know exactly. I haven't really dwelled on anything. I get asked a lot about the Riviera. Yeah, it was cool. We had no intentions. Danny did not even know. I didn't even know that we did something special with that car until it was at SEMA. And even at SEMA, I still didn't understand it. And I had people come up to me and say, yeah, no one's done a lowrider like this in a really long time. I didn't know. The boss
Which one?
drove in the boat tail Rivy, 73
Okay.
Rivy, the lowrider one. I didn't know that we had done anything special. It kept, two or three people busy in the shop while we were slow in their department. And that's, it just kept us busy. It wasn't, I didn't set out to set the world on fire with that car and did not know that we did that at all. I had no clue until SEMA.
Or I'd say I like the gasser you did that had pretty much all the different styles of paint on it that you knocked out in what, 3 weeks or something stupid?
I was like 6 days.
I thought it was longer than that.
No, during the show, because we had tight deadlines, most of my paint work, the rest of the shop, they work 410s. So I had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to get my work done in peace. And basically, whatever the vehicle was, bike, car, whatever, it would be ready to paint by the end of the day, Thursday, and be wrapped up in the booth. And come Monday, that's when I could pass the gun off to Lonnie, and he would get everything clear coated. So it was, I had 3 days to do 99% of the graphics for all the vehicles on the show. The Riviera and maybe a handful of other ones took a little longer, but yeah, on the gasser, I had 3 days on the roof, and then I had 3 days on the body. So that was it. I had 3 days.
And that's a lot of work.
Oh yeah, you're living on the concrete, up and down, up and down, up and down. It needs to be planned out in your head. You've got 3 days to not make any mistakes and move forward and get this done. So it's a lot of logistics in my head, and kicking everybody out to not be distracted. And it doesn't always work. That's not the way it works every time, but that's what I strive for.
So you mean panels weren't painted the wrong color or blown over
Oh,
in the wind or anything on that one?
oh yeah. Well, I tried. Actually, I don't think I had any pitfalls on the gasser. I had dwelled on that car for probably a decade before we got to it, so I couldn't wait for Danny to pull the trigger on that car. But yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
somebody's been in the paint world as long as you have. How have you seen the custom paint industry change from the 90s until now? Is it better or easier to do and for someone to get into it than it was 30 years ago?
Back in the 90s, if you were creative and artistic and you could do the math on figuring out how the graphics worked and the lines of a vehicle or a motorcycle, you were good to go. Nowadays, with the paint manufacturing being changed so much because of the EPA and quality control, air quality control, the paint is not. There's more instructions to the paint now than there was in the 90s. I didn't know what the hell I was doing in the 90s, and everything. I still have paint jobs from the 90s outlasting paint jobs, 20 years old.
I've seen several of them.
Yeah, the materials were a lot different. They were very tenacious. Their adhesion was through the roof, and they cross-linked really well. Whereas nowadays, the lead's gone, this is gone, that's gone. So you have to follow the rules closer for the products to work properly. So I've seen a lot of people that were creative artists become more chemists. They're more fixed on the tech manuals, and making sure that the products are doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm seeing artists that shouldn't know polymer chemistry be full-blown polymer chemists in my eye, and it's become more technical than just having fun and doing art and cool stuff. It's become considerably more technical just to do the minimum. Simple scallop paint job, you have to know a little more than you did back in the 90s to make that last. So I'm seeing artists become technicians, which is awesome because the creativity that are coming out of artists knowing more about the products than we used to is mind-blowing. It's how the hell did you figure this shit out kind of thing. And I like seeing that it's getting just more technical. I see the industry supporting us a lot more. Back in the 90s, we were the dark horses that nobody wanted to put in the forefront. Certainly, companies did not want us representing them in any way, shape, or form. So I'm seeing I'm seeing all the dirt bags come out of the ditches and the dark alleys, standing up with logos across their shirts representing multi-billion-dollar companies, and that in itself is awesome. So I see the
Now,
industry.
how?
I see the
Go ahead.
industry growing in ways that this stupid thing keeps popping up. I see the industry growing in ways that is going to usher in a new group of people that are, I think, 90s work mentality oriented, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Because during the 2000s, paint got really difficult to do, and it washed out a lot of people because they just couldn't figure out how to make it work right. And with the technical side of things coming to light more and more and being more easily understood, um, I'm seeing a new generation of people come in, and they're going to turn the world upside down, and they already
now,
are.
now, how have you seen the change in? I guess it'd be different with bikes versus cars or whatever. But in the '90s, it was graphic heavy and stuff. Where now simple, clean seems to take place of the bright, flashy. I know you still do quite a bit of the graphic stuff. I saw several of the bike stuff you had there taped off, working on stuff while I was there. But how have you seen the progression of styles change in the last 30 years? And have do you see that going back to more graphic heavy moving forward?
Yes. I'll never shoot down the industry, the art side of the industry, because to me, stock sucks. Stock still sucks to me.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of crossover. A lot of us have, in the last 10 or 15 years, we've watched genres cross over. Things like the low rods. You've got full blown $500,000 hot rods with lowrider inspired paint jobs on them and
Yep.
flooring everybody. Like, what is this? What planet did this come from? So I see a lot more of that. Plus, man, the 90s are coming back, baby. I'm looking at mini truck styles coming back, and I'm having a blast watching that. Like, yeah, we're back.
Yeah.
So, in it, again, with the crossovers, there's mini truck crossing over with lowrider, and lowrider crossing over with hot rod and motorcycles. It's going to be a jumbled up mess of fun, in my opinion, because it takes all the blocks are off. You can't put that on a hot rod because that's lowrider. That just doesn't look right. You can't put that on a mini truck because that's a Harley paint job. That doesn't look right. Well, people are being proven wrong on that daily, and it's just shit. You just jumbled up. You just shook the water, the mucky water, and just made it infinite. You made it
Yep.
infinite. We just started over. The last 30 years, 30, 40 years, just started over again. It's like shit. Where, a situation that you may come across and think, well, our industry is peaked. It's not going to go any further. We're on our way out. Well, not even close. We haven't even scratched the surface, which I like because that's what I do.
Is there any paint work that you have always wish you could have done, whether it be a specific vehicle or a specific style that you just haven't been able to do, that in your mind you see that finished product, you just haven't been able to lay it down yet?
Yeah, all of it. It's a constant torment, dude. It's every day because I troll just about I troll every custom painter and pinstriper and airbrush artist I can find. I probably follow more people that follow me, um, because research is everything, and you've got to stay on top of that. But it's inspiring to watch so many other people and their accomplishments. And from day one of my career, I've always wanted to be somebody else. Syndicate Studios, Cal Concepts, Air Syndicate. I still want. I say the same thing still to this day. I want 10 of everything done 10 different ways because that's what I want. I'll never be happy with one thing. Like I said, I'm halfway through a paint job, even on my van. I'm like, yep, I've already outdone it. So maybe this will last 5 or 6 years and it'll drive me nuts and I'll repaint it.
And those that haven't seen his van, the amount of work and detail and gold leafing and everything, is the flake is just ridiculous. So you mean to tell me that now that van's done, you could see yourself redoing it because you would have wanted something different now that it's done?
Not redo it, but definitely add to it. I honestly think I pushed out on it in a lot of ways, and I'm like, can't do that, Ryan. You can't have that.
You have to get your window motors in first, I think, before you finish any more paint work on it.
Preaching to the choir, man. Preaching to the choir. AC and make the windows work. I'm
This
so
man
over.
lives in Vegas with no AC and one window that won't roll down. I don't know how you do it because I was out there for July in Vegas and it's so hot. I'm like, how?
Well, when you live here, because I've had that van for almost 20 years and it never had AC ever. Um, I can count on one hand the number of vehicles I've had in Vegas that had AC. You just get used to it.
That's gonna be a negative for me. Even though we have the humidity here, I'm still not gonna no. When you walk outside and your eyes instantly go dry because of the heat, no, I have to have AC because you drive and you're like barely touching the steering wheel for like the first 20 minutes. Like, oh, it's too hot to turn.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. You get used to that. One way or the other, you get used to it.
so what do you see is in the future for Ryan Evans?
The next job, you know, as soon as one job is done, there's another one behind that and another one behind that. I hope that and pray that my future continues to look like that. Honestly, um, this is what I do. This is what I'm in love with. I don't invent. I don't make things. I try to make things better for myself and the people I work with, but I can't see myself doing anything other than this. And if anyone in this industry knows, uh, we didn't get into it for the longevity, physically, mentally, because this job is tough.
Yep.
Um, but I also swallowed that bullet decades ago that I'm probably going to work myself into a grave. So I'm just going to keep doing what I do.
How many gallons of paint do you think you've inhaled over the last 30 plus years?
Too much because, back in the 90s, we all had these really bad habits of doing full paint jobs with no respirator because we're cool like that.
You
I
don't
have
need
no
it.
idea.
It's ventilated.
I I know it's a mild nuisance. That stupid mask. I don't want to wear that thing. It's dumb. I do focus on that a little more. I got a wife and a kid, and I know they don't want me to kick the bucket anytime soon. I got bills to pay. So I take better care of myself in that regard. And we're all getting old. I mean, I'm 52 now, and I never thought I'd even make it this far, let alone still be doing this. Um, yeah, I keep it simple. I make small goals that way I can meet them. So my goal is to just keep doing what I'm doing.
Nice. So, where's the best way for people to find you online to keep up with your work?
Probably the Counts Custom shop page because
Okay.
I'm all tech savvy and stuff. Not.
A little backstory on that comment. We tried a couple different times to get this podcast. Ryan's phone's not updated, so can't download an app. These artists struggle with technology. So,
I'm not a button pusher, man. I don't do it. But I would say the Count Customs shop page and
okay.
some of the employees here. They've got a better collection of my work than I do, and I don't post anything. But yeah, I'd say the Count Customs Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube. Since COVID kind of killed off the show and the supply chain, we've been doing everything we can to collectively archive all our work on YouTube. So there's probably 4 or 5 years worth of YouTube on there.
Yeah.
And all undercounts. I just in my career, I've always done better for other people than I've done for myself. The ambition for myself just isn't there. But if I can throw ambition towards a community, a group of friends, then look out, get out of my way. So
Yeah.
I throw as much as I can to Counts Customs because I got 26 years into this place.
Oh, wow. I
I've,
guess it has been
I've,
that long.
I've done more for Counts Customs than I ever did for Chaotic or Ryan Evans or anything else. So that's it. That's me. I'm going to be here until this place is thoroughly burnt to the ground.
Well, the world may end before long. We don't know yet. So
Yeah, right.
it was definitely cool to have your touch on my build. I know a year ago when me and Adam sat down and said, "Hey, let's do this." It's like, well, how are we going to do it? What are we going to do? And Adam's like, well, he goes, if I'm touching it, he goes, Ryan's going to handle it in the paint. He's like, Ghetto Bob's going to handle the interior stuff. He's like, we will make this happen. We will make it above and beyond what we planned. And of course, it snowballed and went way above what we planned. Between the powder coating, the interior went further, the paint went further. Like, it was just going to be something semi simple. And I remember I asked Adam, I said, well, what if we paint it? What would be the deal? And he said he asked you, and it's like, can we do it for SEMA this year? And you're like, no, maybe next year. So we decided to stick with the patina, which I am 100% glad we did, because
Yep.
that looks like, I joked when I got to Dino's. I'm like, I think I got a chip in the hood. Adam's like, where? And I like looked at him. He's like, never mind.
You know, it's funny when you plan on, let's say theoretically we're building a rock star. When you try and build a rock star, it's a flop. And you know, just like the Riviera and some of the cars that we've done that ended up being famous. If you intend to make it a rock star, it's going to fall flat on your face. But if it grows into a rock star right in front of you, man, that's something special. And I can say thank you for letting us do that, because that thing turned into a rock star. I mean, did you honestly expect it to have any of the appeal that it has now when you started it?
No, I mean, I thought it'd be a cool build, but I never thought it would be like it is. And everyone has said, if I would have put a shiny, pretty, perfect paint job on it, it would
Would have
not have
ruined it.
gotten half the response.
Yep,
Yeah.
no one would care about it. It'd blend in the crowd with all the other ones.
And things kind of fell into place, because when we got to the point that, all right, we're to a point that we need the paint work. I remember you called Adam and said, hey, I'm going to be gone for these weekends. I got to do the paint now or it won't be done in time. So it
Yep.
just worked out that, like, when you got done, then we got it back together, and like Bob's schedule worked out. Like, I think the stars were aligned. I mean, would I do it again? Ain't no way in hell. But it was definitely a fun, 4 months of my life living in Vegas. People joke and asked if I had like dual citizenship, or was I forwarding my mail, or was I looking at houses while I was out there. So, but I think that what we all as a team accomplished in 19 weeks, and Adam's like, don't say it was 19 weeks. There's no way it could have been done. I'm like,
No, don't tell
physically, it
people.
was 19 weeks. If another customer would have come in, there's no way that would have been 19 weeks. But physically, me, Adam, you, Bob, Pat, we all had 19 weeks, long weeks of work to make what we accomplished. And I could not have done it without the team behind it, including yourself. So definitely cool to have a Ryan Evans paint job on a vehicle that we didn't plan on having anything crazy on.
Yep, I'm grateful. I really do appreciate it. That was definitely another pink elephant, man. That was
And
very cool.
to work hand in hand. Not only was I in Adam's shop day in, day out, late nights, but I was also at counts in the paint shop, sanding, helping, taping, whatever. Like, to be hands on with someone to your level and Bob's level and Adam's level. Like, I feel I learned so much knowledge over the last year. Could I duplicate any of it? Not a chance in hell. But I still learned that knowledge that I didn't know a year ago, and that I'm grateful for sure.
Well, if at the end of the day, at the end of that project, you can honestly say you never want to do it ever again, you did it right. You learned that lesson the right way.
Yeah, that I say, emotionally, physically, and financially, I am done for a while. I mean, maybe I'll
Yep.
do something when I'm about to die, but other than that, I think I'm good for a while. So,
We put you through the ringer the right way, I guess.
man. Yep. Well, I definitely appreciate you having on. I know you've got a crazy schedule, I'm sure. So we'll let you back at it and let you pass your electronic device to someone that knows how to work it. So
I appreciate that. Well,
all right,
very
well,
cool,
good
Brandon. I
finally having
appreciate you.
y'all, man. Like, it was definitely good to kind of get some more of your backstory other than what I got while I was there working with you. So appreciate you coming
Uh,
on.
I appreciate you having me on, Brandon. Thank you.
All right, man.
All right, later.